Hey, what's up, zoners, and welcome to the earliest waiver wire show on the planet. Today, I'm going to be going over all the players on your waiver wire I think you should pick up and how much you should spend on them. We have a running back, man, that is 1% owned that ran for 136 yards today. We also have a rookie starting quarterback that chose his number one wide receiver, man. He is not owned. He's like available in 75% of leagues, for God's sakes, and I need a wide receiver. So hold on for that. And again, this is an early show, man. I'm doing this at the halftime of the afternoon shows. So I will comment down below, after the Sunday night, Monday night game. I encourage you to do the same if I miss somebody or if I'm just an idiot and put somebody on here that does not deserve it. So I have all my notes typed out. I'll be sharing that with you in 7 seconds. All right, let's start off with the running backs, man. Tank Bigsby first up, 44% owned. I thought this fool would be much over 50%, but he is not. 50% fab I'd spent on him, so half my fab, dude. I would do it. I am an ETN owner. Does that influence me? Maybe a little bit. 7 rushes for 24 yards, week 6 versus Chicago. Chicago was allowing the 10th most fantasy points per game to running backs, but so that was supposed to be a great game for Tank Bigsby. That did not happen. They got blown out, man. They were coming from behind the entire time. So Dearness Johnson actually got to see most of the work. He is that, receiving back, whereas Tank Bigsby is the early down back down there in Jacksonville, which might not be that valuable this year. But still, man, Tank Bigsby is like number 1 PFF rated running back. All these metrics are ridiculous. But ETN, man, had a hamstring injury, 3 touches for -1 yards. Dude. Yeah, I started him. ETN in on 50% of snaps before the injury. So even before that, man, Tank was in on 50% of the snaps. He is first in explosive run rate, third in forced missed tackles per attempt, and first in yards after contact per attempt. ETN might as well be his handcuff, man. So hosting New England week 7. New England right now giving up the 13th most fantasy points per game, 21.6 to running backs. That is an average running matchup. And again, dude, blow half your fab, man, on Tank Bigsby if he is still out there. And he only got like 2 fantasy points this week. So if he was available, he should still be available this week. Then Tyrone, Tracy, 43% owned. I spent 20% of my fab on him. Singletary out with a groin injury. I started him last week. I'm starting him this week with all the buys. Again, Singletary out 2 games in a row. He played 59% of the snaps last week with Singletary out. And that turned into 19 touches for 130 yards, man. If he played like 75% of the snaps, holy shit. 5th round rookie, top tier handcuff, and he was a wide receiver for most of his college career. Transitioned to a running back at the very end. So he should be great for PPR eventually, man. Hosting Philadelphia week 7. Philadelphia is giving up the 19th most fantasy points per game, 19.2 to running backs. So that is kind of an average matchup. Next up, Braylon Allen, still. He's going down. His ownership is going down. He was hot shit, man, around here not too long ago. Oh, I don't want to show that one. 36% owned, 20% fab I'd spend on him. I still want him, man. If he was available, I'd spend a lot of money on him. Hall, 4 fantasy points or fewer in each of the last 2 games. And again, he is 6th in forced missed tackles per attempt and yards after contact per attempt. 4th round rookie and the youngest player in the NFL. And dude, he passes every single eye test. He has had terrible matchups, man, week after week. And then next week, he has another terrible matchup at Pittsburgh, week 7. 3rd fewest fantasy points running backs. So again, before his schedule maybe opens up for running backs, get him on your team. Sean Tucker, man. This guy came out of nowhere. An undrafted free agent from last season. Signed with Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Rashad White is out. We were all expecting Bucky Irvin to go ape shit, right? Ape shit. But that did not happen. I'm thinking 15% fab on him, on Sean Tucker. This guy, I got to go back and watch the highlights or something, man, because you look at the yards per play, it is insane. 14 rushes for 136 yards and a touchdown. 3 receptions for 53 yards and a touchdown. Week 6 versus New Orleans. I know that Bucky Irving is not that great of a pass-catching running back, I don't think. He hasn't been used as such so far. Now we have Sean Tucker coming in and doing both, for God's sakes, man. 17 touches to Bucky's 16. Like I said, Rashad White out with a foot injury. He only had 3 total touches going into this week. He is a kickoff returner for the most part. Hosting Baltimore, week 7, and that is a terrible matchup for running backs. But hey, dude, we need to. I would pick him up if you are desperate for running backs just to see what the fuck is going on. And then here we go, man. Next up, Ty Chandler, my Vikings. Still only owned in 1 out of 3 leagues. 10% fab I spent on him. There was a bye week this week, so he will stay at 33%. People were forgetting about him, so this is your chance to pick him up for the cheap. Aaron Jones suffered a right hip injury week 6 and is day to day. Aaron Jones gets injured a lot, man, and this team, just look at the offense on this team, man. Tons of points to be scored here. I said it last year, and this year they're even better, man. So 14 rushes for 30 yards, that is terrible, but that was versus the Jets. So Ty Chandler, still a very valuable handcuff, and he might get a start this week. But the problem is they're going to be hosting the Detroit Lions, man, and the Detroit Lions stop running backs. 6 fewest fantasy points per game, 15.9 to running backs this season. So terrible matchup for Ty Chandler, but hey, man, I would pick him up and start him regardless. And then Kamani Vidal, dude. I was all about Kamani Vidal before the season started. I actually drafted him in both of my leagues. Then I dropped him after week 1 because he was a healthy scratch. 2.3% owned, 10% fab, and that might be going up as we speak. 2 receptions for 40 yards and a touchdown in the first quarter versus Denver. I encourage you to go check out Kamani Vidal's first NFL touch was like a 20-yard touchdown. That shit was crazy, and he is built just like Austin Eckler. It's kind of crazy to see him in a Chargers uniform. I need to get through this, man, because we have so many running backs. But Gus Edwards is on IR, so Kamani Vidal got called up, and look what he's doing right now. He looks great, and he is getting receptions because, dude, Quentin Johnson and Ladd went down immediately, so Josh Palmer and like 3 other crazy wide receivers are getting work. Kamani Vidal, though, dude, drafted by Jim Harbaugh. That's why I was harping on him. Jim Harbaugh knows his shit. He just came from college. So usually those coaches hit on their draft picks for the first couple of years. So I was all about it. And Arizona, week 7, they're giving up the 9th most fantasy points. Arizona's going to fire their head coach, dude. They suck at defense, and they have a defensive head coach, and their offense is terrible. So, yeah, I don't know why I'm talking about that. Next up, Alexander Madison, 36% owned, 10% fab I spent on him. Now, Zamir White, I think he hurt himself last game. He was out this game. Over 4 yards of carry with a touchdown and a long reception so far versus the Steelers, and the Steelers stop running backs. I mean, I just talked about them giving up like the 3rd fewest or something like that. So Alexander Madison is getting the work. 57% of snaps last week with an injured White. But he is 49th in forced missed tackles per attempt, man. This is a volume guy. This guy needs volume. He is not that great. Like I said, I'm a Vikings fan. I didn't like him coming here. But if he's getting the volume, man, he will be a flex play. Then here we go, man. Trey Sermon, Tyler Goodson, 48% owned. Trey Sermon was because of last week. And if you're a Jonathan Taylor owner, you got to go pick him up. 10% fab I'd spend on him. And I was all about Tyler Goodson, dude. Tyler Goodson passes the eye test so much. 18 rushes for 29 yards, though, for Sermon. So, like fucking under 2 yards of carry? What the hell? Week 6 versus Tennessee. I do want to say I should add Tennessee's defense to this list because their defense is amazing. 18 touches to Goodson's 12. JT out with an ankle injury. And I owned Jonathan Taylor last year. That ankle injury just kept on lingering until he needed surgery, dude. So there is a chance, this turns into a longer thing. 4th in explosive run rate before this game. And he had 6 targets and a rushing touchdown last week. So 6 targets and a rushing touchdown. That is amazing. Even with Goodson playing last week as well. They're hosting Miami. And they're next week. And they are a run funnel defense, man. So they're going to run the hell out of the ball. They give up nothing to wide receivers, but the 4th most points per game to running backs at 26. So that should be a great matchup for whoever's running the ball for Indianapolis. Tyler Algier next. Now we're getting into the handcuffs. 43% owned, 5% of fabs. I'd spend on him. Bijan, only 57% snap share on rushing plays and 57% total in red zone. So, dude, Tyler Algier is almost getting 50% of snaps around red zone, and that's where he's worth it. At Seattle next week, the 3rd most fantasy points per game to running backs. They were a run funnel. No, they were just good in general, but then their defensive line is all on IR, dude. So Tyler Algier should have a good week next week. Trey Benson is a handcuff. Ooh, shit. But hey, man, I started Connor. I'm all about Connor. And he injured his ankle and was not getting any carries. So Trey Benson came in. I need to see how serious James Conner's ankle injury is. Otherwise, this fab's going to go way up. But yeah, 26 yards, man. He led the team versus Green Bay. DeMarcado did have 7 targets. I do want to say that. So it won't be like, James Conner gets everything. if Trey Benson is in there, it will not be the same. He will only get rushing work. Did not play one snap in week 5. Averaged 4 yards per carry in 3 of his 4 games with carries. He is a top-tier handcuff, and Arizona does like to run the ball. 8th highest rate. They're hosting the Chargers week 7, and the Chargers are giving up the 7th fewest fantasy points per game to running backs. So that is not a great matchup, dude. And then Antonio Gibson, I got to throw him in here, even though I fucking hate this guy. 43% owned, 5% fab, 62% rushing share. Drake May now starting, so this is changing things up. But Stevenson was out with a foot injury and only had a 45% snap share last week due to fumbling issues. So even though Stevenson did well last week, he only had a 45% snap share. So, I mean, I don't know if you believe in Drake May. I would grab Antonio Gibson because, 50% snap share. You need 100% of the snap share in this offense to do shit. At Jacksonville week 7, they're giving up the 7th most fantasy points per game. That is an amazing matchup. Jacksonville sucks, dude. Ray Davis, James Cook dealing with that toe injury. I did drop Ray Davis for Kamani Vidal, thank God, because I saw that James Cook was going to play. But still, man, Ray Davis to me is a top-tier handcuff. 7th, and Buffalo does run the ball a lot. 7th highest rushing rate in the NFL. Hosting Tennessee, man, and hosting they give up the 20th most fantasy points to running backs. Again, they are great against quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs for the most part. Tennessee's defense, pretty good. Isaac Garindo, I talked about him a lot before this year and after the draft. I liked where he went. 1% owned, 1% fab I'd spend on him. You're like, Tyler, man, didn't you just see that run? Yeah, that was the one run. He had a long as 76, for God's sakes, man. So 23, he was 9 for 23 other than that versus Seattle with that fucked up defensive line. But yeah, he just looks really raw. I think he needs to develop more. And Jordan Mason is day to day with that AC joint. If it was more serious, I would up the fab on this, but not. 4th round rookie, 4.33 speed, handcuff, hosting Kansas City, dude. In Kansas City, gives it the fewest points to running backs at 12.6. Terrible matchup. Do not pick up Isaac Garindo unless you have Jordan Mason. And then here we go, man. On to the wide receivers. I've been trying to trade for this asshole for 3 months. But the guy that owns him will not trade. Not 3 months, 2 months, 1 month. Who knows, dude? 45% owned. 15% fab I'd spend on him. 3 receptions on 4 targets. Christian Watson, man, the deep threat on this team. Jaden Reed takes all the, he gets that yard after contact shit. These are deep bombs to Christian Watson. Dobbs did have the 2 touchdowns, but homie, don't play that. I don't care, man. He was crying. He literally was, going to quit the team if he didn't get involved. So here's your 2 touchdowns, bro. Go suck it, pound sand for, I don't know, the next 3 weeks. Christian Watson to me is going to be much more reliable than that. And he has been, dude, he has been dropped by so many people because of his ankle injury, and he has been in and out of the lineup. He did have that touchdown and 5 targets week 1, but that was it, dude. He's been terrible since and injured. But Christian Watson should be coming back healthy. 2nd round draft pick 3 years ago now. That's crazy. It feels like it was last year. Hosting Houston week 7. They are average against wide receivers, even though you got to wonder if it's after this week with Drake May, they're going to be doing it even worse. And that was all garbage time, man. And then here we go. Next up, I try to get this guy 3 different times, but I talk about him too much. Josh Downs is almost not going to be on this show because he's 49% owned, 15, 20% fab, whatever you want to do, man. I'm just so afraid of Anthony Richardson coming back. 7 receptions on 9 targets led the team. 66 yards led the team. And a touchdown week 6 versus Tennessee. And he led the team in targets last week with Joe Flacco. And when Anthony Richardson was there 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, he had a 25% target share. So I think that he's going to probably be the most consistent wide receiver on this team this year. But when Anthony Richardson's back in, I don't really give a shit because he'll still probably be a flex. But with Joe Flacco in there, he's like a wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 2. 3rd round draft pick in 2023 by Shane Steichen. So the coach that I really respect put a lot of draft capital into him. And then here we go, man. Hosting Miami week 7. I just talked about that. That is a run funnel defense. So not a great matchup. The 3rd fewest fantasy points to wide receivers at 18.7. And there we go, man. Demario Douglas. We had a rookie Drake May started. And people were like, oh, I'm going to get Poke. I'm going to get this. I really liked Demario Douglas, man. He was on this show for 2 months last year. And he's going to be on this show for 2 months going forward now. 21% owned. 15% fab. I want to get him in my league, but I've got no money. So I hope to God that, because I should have, instead of Kamani, I probably should have picked up Demario Douglas, but whatever, dude. Drake May now starting, and he likes to target this guy. He led the team in targets during May's limited time week 3 with like 3 targets out of like the 8 passes or 10 passes. I can't remember. Jacksonville, week 7. Dude, Drake May will be a top 10 play next week versus Jacksonville. Just look at the goddamn stats. The most fantasy points per game, 38 points, dude, to wide receivers, man. Jacksonville is terrible on the back end. And then next up, dude, Marvin Harrison Jr. got injured. Concussion this week. Micah Wilson, we've been talking about him being a fringe player for a while. With no Marvin Harrison Jr., he is a flex player. 14% owned, 5% of fab on him. He did get that touchdown, 21 yards. They got dominated by Green Bay. I'm surprised he did not get more garbage time or anything like that. Same number of targets as Marvin Harrison Jr. over the last 3 weeks coming into this game, so he has been involved. And now Marvin Harrison Jr., man, if you ever want to trade for him and you believe in this team at all, I don't know how it's going to get better, dude. But as a Rashee Rice owner, I'm looking for upside. I might try to trade for Marvin Harrison Jr. They're hosting the Chargers next week. They're giving up the fourth fewest fantasy points per game. Playing the Chargers is not good. It is a low-scoring affair. Oh, dude, I wanted this guy to be so much better. If Olave was not hurt, right? It was Olave, left week, with the concussion, like in the first quarter. I saw this Bub Means guy, and I was like, I'm gonna put this guy at the top of my list, man. 5% fab, 5 receptions on 8 targets. So he led the team in targets. And he had a touchdown. Oh, shit. Yeah, 45 yards and a touchdown versus the Bucks. This guy was drafted, 5th round with Spencer Rattler. I think Rattler was maybe 4th or 6th round. So, hey, man, they were like draft mates. They know each other. And plus, dude, they probably work out in the second team all the time together. So, Derek Carr out. Rattler is expected to start for the next month, pretty much. Bub and Wolverine would love this guy. Hosting Denver week 7, that is the terrible matchup. He's unstartable next week. I don't give a shit. He's unstartable. But, hey, if you want to keep this guy around maybe for 2 starting weeks, you can. But Olave was out. But, man, I got to put this guy in here. All right, on to the quarterbacks. I think I only have one quarterback. Caleb Williams, I did start him this week. And he's turned it around, man. Like, he is worth keeping through the bye. If you're hurting for a quarterback, spend 10% on this guy. I would. I dropped him after week 2, and it was terrible. He got 6 points in the first 2 weeks, and now he's been doing a lot better through 29 times. 4 fucking touchdowns, man, versus Jacksonville. But again, it's versus Jacksonville. The most points to quarterbacks. 5+ rushing attempts in 4 of his 6 games. He had 4 rushing attempts today, so that's pretty close to that. And 30+ rushing yards in 3 of those 6 games. Like I said, he had like 10 rushing touchdowns per year in college, even more than Jaden Daniels. So I'm expecting rushing touchdowns to come. 18+ fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games, 25+ in each of the last 2. Second in yards per attempt, so he throws deep. And this number was like 32nd. His accuracy was terrible in the beginning, and now it's getting average. So he's getting a little bit more comfortable, but they are on bye. But again, dude, pick up Caleb Williams through the bye week. And then here we go. We got some tight ends on here. Cade Otton, man, still only 24% owned. 10% fab. I am actually surprised he was not more involved this week because of the Mike Evans versus Lattimore game, and you saw that played out. 2 receptions on 6 targets. That was the second most on the team that 6 targets was. He did get a touchdown versus New Orleans, but it should have been a lot more. He is tied for 9th most targets as a tight end at 25 heading into this week. 7+ fantasy points in each of his last 4 games. Dude, this team is good. Baker Mayfield throws the ball a ton, and Cade Otton has been targeted a lot as of late. They are hosting Baltimore, and that is actually a really good matchup for tight ends, giving up over 10 points a game. So, yeah, dude, I would pick up Cade Otton and start him next week. And then Hunter Henry, man. He's on the show. Every time he's on here, he goes out and gets 0 points, and they got to fucking cut him. But things are different now. Drake May is there. He had the second most targets. So, Demario Douglas and Hunter Henry will be the beneficiaries of Drake May. He got a touchdown, man, and like I said, I think he had 6 receiving touchdowns last year, and that was second most in the NFL. So he is a red zone target. And Houston is amazing against tight ends, man, and he still did well. So, yeah, he is tied with Cade Otton, 9th most targets going into this game. Jacksonville, man, next week, giving up the 18th most fantasy points per game to tight ends. Still, I would love that as a second target on this team. He should be a smash start next week. There's a couple defenses just to wind it up, but it looks like Cleveland was actually playing better this week. I need to check this out. But dude, Green Bay's defense has been killing it. Jason's been talking about it. Dude, defensive 3 heading into this week, 12 plus fantasy points in 4 of the last 5 games. They have a terrible matchup next week. But if I was going to pick up a defense, if you have extra room, if you're a 2 defense type of person, not like me, dude, I would pick up Green Bay and hold them through the week, because I don't think people are going to be targeting them with Houston this week. Even though, hey man, I started Minnesota against Houston and it worked out for me. And then Cincinnati, I'm targeting everybody against Cleveland because I just think that team is just given up, man. So, but hey, it looked like they were doing actually a little bit better this week, so we'll check in on that later. All right, everybody, that is the show. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I earned a thumbs up. Hopefully I earned a subscription. If you do like this show, if you give me a thumbs up, it will send me out to a whole bunch more people, and that's exactly what this show needs, man. We need exposure. So hey, man, we got our smashes and crashes, our trade targets. We'll be putting together a bunch of trade targets for you on our Tuesday episode, and we've got a whole bunch of other stuff after that, man. Plus live drinking shit. It is fun. This is Tyler, Big Turd Ward, the Fantasy Red Zone, and we appreciate you.